Thank you for joining us for this July 20th Webmaster webinar. Today we're talking about search engine optimization. So we have Cara Hart from Neilsville. She'll be joining me. She's going to get down into some nitty-gritty Divi and Yoast SEO plugin details. And I'm just going to go over general practices that you would not think are SEO or search engine optimization, but they are. So when I say search engine optimization, I'm talking about the visibility of your website in the search engine. And for the most part, libraries try to do search engine optimization or getting websites to appear higher in search results with free tools. So the little details we'll be talking about together today. But businesses pay extra to kind of trick the rankings and get their websites higher. So just to give you a little background on website services. For Indian Head, our sister system that we also help out with websites, probably 10 or more years ago, Indian Head bought all of the domain names or all the URLs for their libraries and maintained those URLs and created websites for their libraries. So they've been doing website service from the very beginning. And so when we create a new WordPress website for them, we are not using any new domain names or URLs. So there's less chance of a drop in search engine optimization or dropping in the rankings, right? But as you'll see later, we always need fresh content and accurate content and maintained content for that ranking to stick, right? So now let's do the meandering history of WVLS library website support. WVLS did not purchase the URL names for all of the libraries in the past. WVLS libraries took charge and created the websites themselves and purchased domain names themselves by going through a company or doing it themselves. Then a little bit later, so late 90s, early 2000s, WVLS provided a very rudimentary URL and web page setup, and that was in addition to having the option of libraries build their own and purchase their own web URLs. So WVLS libraries have a harder time. And a good example is the Gilman Public Library. Or I should say the Western Taylor County Public Library in Gilman. So really recently, Gilman switched to WordPress, and instead of having their new URL, which is listed here, Gilman, let's click on it so you can see it. That's the city one, and this is the public library one. So www.gilmanlib.wi.us. They had a different web address before, and so when we created their new website with this new address, their web page was not listed at all in the search results here. Here it is now. It's number 2 underneath the city ranking. Also, the website was not listed in the Google search result you see on the right-hand side here. So we had to do some optimization from the get-go. And so just to show you some simple things that we did with Gilman and that we do with all of your websites, especially those that are changing URLs when they get a new website, we're going to use the Google Search Engine Optimization Starter Guide. Yeah. So if you just type that in, you can find it. I'm also going to send this to everybody in an email with the recording of the webinar, so you don't have to write everything down. Now, it's important to note that Bing search engine has a webmaster guide, so does Mozilla. So pretty much every search engine is going to have an optimization starter guide. We're going to go with Google because quite a few people use Google. And as it mentions, this guide is for pros, people who are SEO gurus, and people who are just starting out on website design. So it has really awesome tools like a glossary, and it shows you what index crawler, Googlebot SEO is. So one thing to note is Google is fully automated. And so when we saw that Gilman's new URL was not listed in the Google search results, that meant that the Googlebot or Google's crawler had not discovered the website yet. And we needed to do something so that Google would notice it more quickly and get the website in the search results. So how do you get your site on Google? Well, like I said, first the Googlebot has to find your website, and there's different ways you can have the Google crawler find your website. So here the Google search engine optimization starter guide gets into details, and I'm just going to simplify it a little bit. So first you need to have unique and accurate page titles. And what we're talking about here is when we create a new page, this is the page title right here. You use a one header or a header one size for each page so it knows the title of the page. And they also suggest that the page title should say or indicate what the page content is going to be about. Now this may seem obvious to you, but scam websites, those kind of things, they give weird titles for things just hoping you'll click into them and see what the page content is. The second, well, of course I spelled it wrong. The second tip is to add a description of your page to each page on your website. So what does that mean? Everybody has an about page, right? And you talk about the mission and purpose of your library, right? Well, each of your pages should have a purpose and mission. And now when they say add a description of the page, I'll show you where to do that. So click on your edit page, and when you scroll down beneath the Divi builder with all of your boxes and things, we're going to find a spot to add your description. That is going to be the excerpt space. So for each page, you want to write 1 to 2 sentences on what the page is about. Now, when you're writing these 1 to 2 sentence descriptions, you want to think about what search words your users might use to find that piece of information from your page. So you probably always want to put the name of your library, some of the content from the page on there, right? And the nice thing about Divi is there's always extra help tools on what you could do better to add in there. Now, remember I said it was very important for each page to have a header. And a header I'm talking about is the heading 1 size font. So if I click into here, you'll see that Children's Services uses the largest font size, heading 1. So the third tip is to use heading order properly. So every page has to have a heading title, and then the following focus areas need to be in order. So, oh good, now I messed something up, that's okay. The page title is heading 1, the next successive content space should be heading 2, and then decreasing as you go. Now, if there's related material, if there's material that's related to each other, it's fine if you have multiple segments as long as they have the same heading size. And we'll get more into that a little bit later when we start to talk about the web accessibility evaluation tool. Now, this heading usage is important because it will tell the Google crawler and also screen readers for those who have problems with eyesight or loss of eyesight who are using screen readers, the heading size is going to direct the screen reader across your web page. So the order in which you use your headers is going to determine the path that it reads for those using screen readers. Okay, now here's an easy one. The fourth tip is to manage your appearance in Google search results. Now, I mentioned that the new URL for Gilman was not included in this right-hand search result here in Google. So what you can do is send in suggestions, and it doesn't have that. Yeah, suggest and edit. So first, suggest and edit. Then, if your library has not been claimed by a library staff member with the correct credentials, it's important to claim your library as your business so that you can update information at will. If you make a suggestion for an edit, it may take multiple suggestions or a little bit of time for your suggestions to be reviewed. So it's faster and more safe if you claim the business as your own. Okay, so now we're jumping back again. Another tip is to have specific pages for related content. I know that for smaller libraries, we get in the habit of having just one page for content because we don't think we have enough content to fill up separate pages, right? But it's important to separate your content so the website is more organized both for the viewer and also for the crawler bots, right? So if you have a whole bunch of information on friends of the library, maybe they need their own page. If you have a whole bunch of information for youth programming or donating to the library, that should have its separate page. Okay. Next, Google advises that you use text for navigation. Okay, and you can see that we use text for navigation, but in some other areas of service, it might be appropriate to use icons. So maybe if you are a restaurant, you might want to have a hamburger and then a martini glass because you guys specialize in dinner and drinks, right? But always include text for navigation and make your URLs as simple as possible. Now, we kind of do that for you, and I'm going to show you what we mean. When we say keep your URLs as clean as possible, we mean the URL should reflect the actual human language of the page you're on. So in order to do that, when I set up your website, the very first thing I do is I go to settings and I click on permalinks and I set it to the URL text should pull its name from the post. And the post is the content in your page or the header for your page, right? So instead of having these weird results like $P equals 1, 2, 3, it's going to say children's services. Right? There's going to be a little bit of a formula. Now, in some instances, when websites have like a bazillion pages, it might make more sense for them to have a different labeling strategy, but that's for them to figure out, right? Okay, so now we're going to talk about hyperlinks. So an example here is you should be providing text as a link instead of the word here. You see how some are reading resource roundup as linked. I am not linking a word that says like here or the website here. I'm linking the actual text that I am referring to, and that's important. Another tip, you can see here that I have a couple comments to go through. So the tip is to combat spam comments, excuse me. And you can do that by going to the comment section on your navigation dashboard or up at the top with the speech bubble, clicking on comments. And when you select your comments, you can use a bulk action and mark it as spam. You can unapprove it or just delete it. So it's important to go through all of your comments regularly and glance at the text here. Anything about downloading videos, obviously something in Russian probably isn't that great. But it also gives you a chance to respond to someone if it's a true response to one of your posts. Now, we've been seeing, posts in Russian. This one's about a payday lender. This one is about buying cheap prescription drugs. Usually you'll find something about porn. Sometimes there's a track back. That means if someone wanted to link to your page from their website, you can allow that. So that's good. And you can reply to a message right on here. So hit reply. I don't want to reply to a dating website, so I'm going to hit spam. And you can do this by up at the top. I messed up the order here, but usually your newest responses will all be up top, so you can bulk select the comments and then click mark as spam or move to trash or whatever your preference is. So these two I'll mark and I'll move to spam, right? The other thing to note is for your comments setting, you can go to setting and find, and discussion. We want to go to settings and discussion. And you can limit who can post on there, so anyone can post a comment, or you can say I have to allow or approve them commenting the first time, and then they're allowed to comment anytime after that. It's up to you. Okay, so now one of the more important pieces here is the recommendation is to add alternative text for images and files. This is super important. You need to include a description for all of your photos and files that you add to your websites. So this is important again, and you'll see that this is working with accessibility. If a screen reader is being used on your website, the only information that they'll get from an image or a file is associated with the alternative text field. So what does that mean? When you add images or files to your website, it gets housed in the media library. So this should look familiar to you. And over on the right-hand side, these areas should look familiar to you. Now, when I'm talking about a title, the title of a photo should be something that helps you identify it. The alternative text area of a photo or a file here should include most, if not all, of the information from the visual you have here, or a very great description of what's in the file. So I would add a database of grant-making organizations in Wisconsin. Now, if this is a slide for a program with time and date and information, all of that goes into alternative text. And if you're feeling excited, you could also put that in the description. But again, it's just helpful to put the alternative text and fill out as much information over here as you can for images and, and PDF files. So, all right, and so we could add more to this one. I don't know what that one is. Tech Days needs a little bit more help. So does Inclusive Services. One thing to note is you'll see a lot of the caption boxes empty. And that's because if you put text in the caption, it'll show up on your page. So and it's not required. So, okay, so the second to last tip out of 12. So the 11th tip is to make sure you're designing your website with mobile or smaller tableted devices in mind. Now, an easy way to test yourself is to make your browser smaller and drag it and see how it responds, right? So this is how my home page is going to look. The search box isn't pretty, but we have a lot of requirements on it. We get this hamburger menu instead of titles of the menu, right? And it'll stay as a hamburger menu until it gets big enough so that the words pop up. So now let's look and see how maybe these toggles look when we get smaller. Okay, so they're not too bad. Gets rid of a picture. right, on here. So the other thing to note is when you are using page header sizes, that is how it will display as a mobile display, right? So it'll go from biggest to smallest according to the headers that you use. How cool is that? All right, so you can see the mobile design not only just by moving your browser smaller, but also when you edit page and you're inside a module, it's less reliable, but there is an eyeball icon that'll show you what it looks like on a desktop, then on a tablet, and then on a cell phone. So that's pretty cool. All right. The other thing that you should be doing, the very last tip here before I hand it over to Cara for the nitty-gritty details, is you should be promoting your website through your social media. You should be encouraging Google reviews. So you should be encouraging Google reviews that will show up here in your search results. Promoting your website. So that could be on physical flyers in your library. Have your website pop up every time one of your public computers is used. Like I said, link it to your Facebook page. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is in your About section of your library on Facebook, you should have your website listed in here. Let's see if it is. Yep, there we go. There's our website. We have a whole bunch of information there. But on Twitter, on Facebook, on here, making sure your Google result includes your website. And before I hand it over to Cara, again, what I always say to everyone is your website is a living thing. A Google search result search result list tends to leave out the websites that are not groomed regularly. So if the content is out of date, that makes your result less appealing, right? Your search result is going to be a little bit further down if you have outdated material. So it's important for you to work with the Google search result here. Work with your city. If your city has a page for your library website, your city should be referring that web users on their city page to click and go to your new website page, right? And make sure to take a look at all of your pages regularly, because what you thought might never ever need to change on your resources list, maybe it does. Maybe you got new resources, right? So I hope that was helpful, and I'm going to turn it over to Cara. I am going to change the presenter and give it to Cara. And so Cara is going to talk about what she did specifically for her Neillsville Public Library website and her decision to use a plugin to get more specific SEO, search engine optimization control, and results stuff. So take it away, Cara. Thanks for helping me out today.
All right, and my screen's all good? It can be seen?
I can see it. How about everybody else? I can see. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Take it away, my friend.
In addition to everything Anne said, we also found testers that you can use online, and there's a lot of free ones that you can choose from for your color palette choice for your website, as well as for different types of browsers.
Yeah, Cara, I forgot to talk about one tool. Are you familiar with the Web Accessibility Evaluation tool?
No.
Okay, could you type that in there and pull that up? And just into a regular browser page. The Web Accessibility Evaluation tool, you know, it aids with accessibility by you plug in your URL of the page you want to evaluate, and then it will tell you if your headers are in the wrong configuration, or if there's not enough contrast with your colors like you were about to get into.
Is this it?
That's a tools list. I think you just need to search web accessibility evaluation and see what it brings up. But you plug in your URL and it'll tell you if your colors don't have enough contrast, if you are missing a header one size, wave accessibility. There we go. Yep, that one right there. And so you plug in each page if you want, and it'll break down, as you can see on the left-hand side, it'll make notifications right on your page of things that you can adjust to help with accessibility. Because like I said, with all of the tips that we're going into, a lot of it plays into search engine optimization, accessibility measures. So sorry for that interruption, Cara. Please forgive me.
No, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. It'll show dead links, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's just really cool. And some things you can do something about, some things you can't. So it's really up to you to take that on, right? I know. I'm sorry. I gave you another tutorial. I'm
okay.
sorry. Okay, go for it.
Well, I very much like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that one, I like this one too for browser specifically, because then you can test it for different iOS sizes and different Android sizes. And it looks ever so slightly different. So I like that you can, and then even specific cell phones between Android and iOS, because it does look a little different on each one. Like that one's not lined up very well, but so we found that one to be pretty helpful. And the colorblind web page filter is the one that we've used, because you can pick different types that it can cycle through. And each type that you pick, then it'll come up how it would look. So it's still a pretty decent contrast. I think I tested all of these and we chose our web colors. So it should still be a nice contrast and decently easy to see. Another thing that we kind of watched is download time for a web page. Web pages are slow. People generally don't tend to stick around. If people aren't sticking around, I'm pretty sure there's a way that Google tracks that, how long you're on a website. And so the main thing that we've done is to compress our images and make them smaller. And we've done it through this imagecompressor.com. So we just upload our file, and then it'll tell you how much. So mine is 51%, and that's a huge amount of, image that we don't have to upload now. And we've done this with all of our permanent images. We generally don't do it for temporary ones like our new release list. We probably should, because there's a lot of them on our new materials list. And Divi does have SEO theme options in there. We haven't delved too deeply in it, but I did want to just kind of briefly mention it so you know it's available and you know it's there. I like this one because it has screenshots, it has exactly where the mouse is hovering, it tells you exactly where to click, and then as you scroll to some of the more advanced stuff, it does explain kind of its use and what you might want to use it for, or if you don't need it. And it goes through all of the tabs. And it's in that theme options under SEO. There's a bunch of options that you can go through. I have next on my list the mobile responsiveness, which Anne touched on. And she mentioned writing naturally, and I fully agree with that. We try to avoid library fancy jargon, and with a lot of mobile being searched by voice now instead of typing it in, it's different. So what you say into a device as if you're searching it is different than what you would type in the language that you use. The search is worded differently, so we try and keep the things that we type a little more natural flowing. And this is an alt text YouTube video that I have up, because the Divi builder doesn't automatically pull the title and alt text from your image, from your media gallery. You actually have to go in to where you edit your page. And then in the module setting itself, under Advanced, then right here under Advanced, you scroll all the way down, and then there's your alt text. And it should turn up. And you can test that by going to your website, picking any image, right-click, inspect element, and it'll highlight it for you already. So you can see here that this one was successful because here's my alt, A-L-T, Neillsville School, early 1900s. So that one was correct. And then if you kind of skim through, it'll highlight other things, but you can do that for your images to make sure that alt text was successful. If you're really curious, Google actually does have an algorithm change history for what they rank on for their SEO. So I have a list of resources that can be emailed to everyone if they're interested. So I'm just essentially just kind of going through them. And so the last one was in March, and that's when they decided that mobile first indexing is going to be a thing. So it's very important for your site to be mobilely responsive, because I know some websites now are mobile only, so they don't even have a desktop, and then Google now is also indexing for it. I'm closing them out as I go so that I remember where I've been. And, oh, site visibility. So if you're ever curious which pages on your website that Google is actually indexing, you can test it by going to Google site : your library URL, and below it, it's going to give you all of the pages in your website that Google can see or has been indexed already. Haven't gone past, oh, there it is. Yep, so it looks like all of ours are looking good. Just out of curiosity. Oh, and those are individual posts. Okay, so that's good. So it does posts too, anything that's indexed. And we did upload an XML sitemap, so that might have something to do with it, but you can at least check to see if Google is aware of all of your posts and pages. And before we get into Yoast specifically, there's one more resource that I thought was kind of neat to take a look at, and Divi actually has a cheat sheet for their SEO best practices with headings, images, some more advanced stuff. If you're curious, links, social media, they recommend always linking back to your website through a lot of your social media posts. So that might be kind of fun to check out. And then they also have a list of helpful links at the end of it. And I did put this on, I think that's that one. Nope, cheat sheet. I did put it on my resources as well. Okay, so Yoast specifically, we only have the free version. There is a premium version, and we kind of went with this one because it's pretty low maintenance, almost very nearly a set it and forget it kind of a deal, which is nice for us because there's another person that I have working with me on the website. So it's nice for them. They don't have to worry about it. So Yoast does the technical updates for you. For example, that Google algorithm history page that I showed you, they adjust for that on your website through their plugin on their end. So you don't have to worry about it. They also handle other site crawling things. They do a readability check on all of your pages, which can be helpful. It's not an end-all be-all by any means, but it can kind of give you an idea of where you are. So this is my Yoast plugin working on all of these. Green light means good, orange light means could use improvement. So that one, the little feather, is readability. How easy is it to read? And they have different guidelines on that. And then that one is your SEO score. So if we just look at it, this is our 3D printer page. So here we have our readability, and you'll have your analysis. So we have one problem that we could fix, which is none of my sentences contain a transition word or phrase, which is the recommended is 30. Well, I mean, you're going to take that with a grain of salt. So this specific page is for a 3D printer. It's got some bullet points. There's not any paragraphs on it whatsoever. So maybe I probably won't pay attention to that problem. I'm probably not going to fix it. The good results, so they do a reading ease test, and they use the Flesh reading ease test, which links out if you're curious about it. And then it gives you the score based on that. We use subheadings on this page. None of the paragraphs are long. Well, no, because it's mainly bullet points. 0 of the sentences contain more than 20 words. So then it just gives you a list of things that you really should fix in red that they suggest, and then in orange is kind of up to you. For keywords, this is where you kind of have some control over things. And some of what you do here actually does show up in Google. So they're called rich snippets is what this little description down here is called, and you can edit this. So where I have contact the library by email or phone, I wrote that, I put that there. You can make it as long or short as you want. Yoast has recommendations, and it kind of pops up and guides you through it as you edit, which is nice. So our 3D printer, if I clicked edit snippet, so here's our SEO title. I think Yoast kind of likes the longer ones, because the longer I went, the more green this became for my longer titles. And then the meta description is what you would see pop up in your Google search. So that my contact page, that's where that meta description pops up. Sometimes it takes a little bit for it to show up because Google's not going to crawl your website or index it, you know, every hour of every day. Sometimes it takes a few days or a week or so in order for that change to be seen. But as far as I can tell, it does happen. And then just like with the readability, there is another analysis section. So we have a few more problems with this one. So they like their keywords to appear quite frequently, but then with that, I feel you also have to be careful with what's called keyword stuffing. So if I just put 3D printer in a bunch of random spots, I might get faulted by Google because that's keyword stuffing. You're just repeating your word over and over and over, and it's not meaningful for your content. So above all else, above these suggestions, make sure your content is meaningful and your keyword isn't excessive. Yeah, this is an error in a lot of articles. They like 300 words to be kind of where your posts are, because it's viewing this as a post, but it's a 3D printer. So these are our orange ones. So they look at your meta description, which they do like to be a little longer. They look at your headings, how you're using your images. Uh-oh, I'm busted. I do not have all my alt attributes on there. We're going to have to go fix that. They also analyze your SEO title. So here's the keyword density. So we don't use it a lot. It was only twice that we used it on that page, but it was a pretty short page. And it goes through your links. If the links that it's following are broken or not, what they're linking to. And then if you're they give you extra points if you're creative with your keywords. Also, with Yoast, go back, they send me pretty frequent emails, which I think is helpful. And so, well, this I mentioned today, actually. So they just kind of informational stuff. And they have different posts that you can read through. There's keyword research, so just for different things that you can learn about, and then sometimes you can implement it, sometimes we can't because we don't have the premium account. But either way, I think those emails are helpful. They also have, I didn't have this one out yet, they also have a blog with kind of a Q&A in different categories, which I've found helpful. So you can learn about a lot on here. You can learn just the basics, if that's where you're at, WordPress specifically, technical stuff, analytics stuff, social media stuff, and there's different topics on each of these. So that's kind of fun to explore. And I'll show you, that brings me in to the end of the notes that I had, but I'll show you the different from the plugin, because this is what you would view as a page. So this is what happens, what you see when you click on the actual plugin, which, yay, 0 problems. So there's nothing super serious going on with our website. This is a little wonky because it doesn't like it that we have 2 XML sitemaps on here. We're going to have to take a look at that later. But it'll notify you of different things. This one's just asking for a rating. Advertise to go premium. Features. So these also, Yoast on the website kind of guides you through each one. We have all of ours set to on. So sitemaps, yes, they're allowed. The analysis, yes, it's allowed. The readability, yes, we'll allow it. Webmaster tools. So you can link your Yoast with your Google Analytics, and it's almost like a partnership. So they'll work together, so you can go on your Google Analytics and look at that separately. A lot of this, you would need premium to do a lot of edits, but you do get some options here. So you can control a little bit how your meta descriptions look into Google, so if you show the date, if you don't want to show the date. And I haven't played with this too much. You can control a little bit what your URLs look like, make sure that, like Ann said, they don't have those weird symbols or numbers, that they're pretty easy to read. So settings for your calendars. Media. Yeah, I haven't been through any of this, actually. And Google is ranking for businesses, I know, for like media and pictures. So there's a way you can set up your website to, like, for people that are selling things, for the pictures to show up in their search results too, so they can click on it and immediately go to where that item is for sale. So this is more with that editing that meta description box. There's a lot of things you can do with that, however you choose to set that up with how you want it to look in Google. Yeah, RSS we haven't really done because we haven't really posted a blog post per se. Most of ours so far has been informational. The Search Console. I don't quite remember what this one was either. Yeah, I don't think I messed with the Search Console. So this is, we're also connected. So we connected with Google Analytics, but we also connected with our Google Search Console. So that's what this is. And that's all set up and connected. And then you got to link out to go to your Google Search Console to access that. And then they give you a list of like premium versus free and what you can get. Otherwise, that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Cara, you did a wonderful job. I love just watching you go through things because you have like a technology investigative passion. You know, you bring the same energy to investigating the ILS and discovery layers as you bring to your website. And you know, it's up to every library. You know, how much time do you have to devote to this? Do you stick to the basics, or do you dive in? You know, are you using a new URL, so you have to do more, or are you an Indian head library and you've never changed your URL and you already show up pretty high? But I think that a lot of the suggestions that Cara went over and that the Google Search Engine Optimization Starter Guide went over and the Wave Accessibility Tool goes over all add to accessibility, which works with SEO. You know, it's just about making that best experience for your library users. You know, like Cara said, you don't think of the small things like the download time, but it's a big deal. Think about it. All those times you try to go to, like Amazon Prime had Prime Day this week and it was overloaded, so a lot of people didn't shop, you know, because they got like a funny image and they thought, well, I'll come back later, but they never do. So, yeah. I don't see any questions coming in from Denise or Alice. Let's see. I don't see anything coming in. Yeah. But, Cara, I really appreciate you helping out and digging into the meat like you always do. Yeah. We got a note from Denise saying, yeah, everybody just wants to go and check out how their website is doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see, like, the Google Analytics and everything. That's a lot of fun to look into because that's so detailed.
Yeah, and it's such a time waster, like you said. Like, there's so many details to go into, and you get, all of a sudden an hour is gone, you know.
It is, and that's almost another webinar of itself, I think. Like Google Analytics is one, Google Search Console could be one, and then schema.org could also be one with microdata. So all of those separate would be.
Yeah. There's that personal. It's like your pet project, you know.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that Cara did nearly every single darn little thing for this website, so that's why I love having everybody together in the same room for our work together days, you know, so we can learn from each other because we all have different specialties in our websites, right? Alice is asking, do you need Yoast to create a sitemap? And I would say no.
No, that is what one of my problems was. It wasn't liking it because I did use, so here, it's not, Yoast is not liking me too much right now because I have the Google XML sitemap plugin because for the Google Search Console, Google likes the sitemap. It can index it a lot easier. So as you saw when I indexed myself, it was indexing my individual posts as well as my pages. And I provided that sitemap. However, I had to use an additional plugin because from what I could tell, Yoast CEO, you can't just download it and upload it somewhere else. It wasn't accessible without that premium buy-in.
Oh.
So I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You might be able to find it on the Yoast because it does have it. It shows you that it has it, but I couldn't download it to get it to the Google console.
Oh, okay.
So, but if somebody figures out how, then that'd be awesome.
I do want to mention that the Google Search Engine Optimization Starter Guide talks about what a sitemap is and where it needs to go and how to get it there. So don't feel, and I promise you I'm going to send a list of what we talked about today so you don't have to panic and make sure you're writing scribbly notes. And Cara has,
and I have mine too.
Yes, she has a few wonderful slides that she never even showed because she's that professional and showed on her page. But I'm going to send her information out too because she really dives into that deep end with all this stuff too. So